Hey everyone, James Niggemeyer here. Thank you for tuning back into my YouTube channel. Today, I want to share with you a box that is full of baits that I feel like are great at catching bass when they are schooling on baitfish, whether it's threadfin shad or gizzard shad. This is a box that I feel like's got, some all-star players to catch bass when they're schooling on baitfish. Before I get right into it, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and drop a comment down below. So this is the box that you gotta have for catching bass that are schooling on baitfish. And in it, I've got like 5 different baits. There's a lot of baits that work for catching bass schooling on baitfish or exhibiting schooling type behavior up on top near the surface, whether it's along the bank or out over open water. There's a lot of different baits that'll work really well, but I'm gonna give you 5 different baits and some ways in which to fish them that I feel like are great at catching bass schooling on baitfish. Number 1, I think you really have to have rigged up some type of spoon. And I've got one here, a fluttering type spoon like this in either chrome or white or chrome blueback, something like that can work really well. This is a brand new spoon. It's called the Little Ledge spoon. It's Mark Rose designed bait. It's got an interesting little bend in it. This one's got white on one side and chrome on the other. I like that pattern. Nothing screams baitfish like white and chrome. It's got that little eyeball on there. And one of the unique things about this bait is it's got a swivel already embedded in the bait. See that? As it's fluttering to the bottom, this thing is gonna twist your line, but it's got that swivel already built in. It's gonna cut down tremendously on line twist. A spoon is awesome because a lot of times when you first find bass chasing baitfish or schooling up on top of the water, they're a ways away from the boat. And so you need something that you wanna just have on the deck and you could pick up and just throw a country mile, as we like to call it. There's not many baits that can outdistance a spoon. And I believe this spoon's like a 3/4 ounce. So this thing's really you can send it. And so if they're halfway across the cove or you're fishing a point and they're out behind you blowing up, a spoon, throwing it out there and letting it flutter to the bottom. It's got that little scale pattern. You might even want to dress that up with one of these owner tournament trebles that have got a little feather on there and a little mylar in there. That would actually kind of dress it up, maybe get you a little bit more action, getting you a few more bites. But a spoon, you throw it out there, it hits the water, and this thing's just fluttering back to the bottom. And a lot of times as it first hits the water in the first 3 or 4 seconds, those fish are gonna get it. And if they don't, then you can, before it goes all the way to the bottom, you just rip your rod tip up and it's gonna bring that spoon up and then it's gonna flutter back down. Bring it back up and flutter back down. So spoons are just great at catching schooling fish. It's probably one of the top baits because again, not only does it look like baitfish, but it has flash like a baitfish and you can throw it far, which is key when you're fishing for bass schooling on baitfish. Sometimes they prefer a bait that stays up on top. And for that situation, it's just so hard to beat a walking type bait. A bait that does a walk the dog type action. What I mean by that is it zigzags right, left, based on how you twitch your rod tip. And it really is just a great bait for catching schooling fish. And one of the great things about this bait is not only the action that it has, but also you can really throw this a long distance as well. And you might throw the junior size, which is a 2-hook. This is the regular Strike King Sexy Dog. Sometimes bait size is really important, and so you might want to throw a junior, but other times they might just blow up on a full-size one. So the full size is the one you want because obviously more hooks, and then the weight, you'll be able to send it and be able to work it from a long ways out. I prefer it with braided line, 30-pound test braided line or 50-pound test braided line. And sometimes I even use a little mono leader out in front, maybe a length of 24 inches, tied with a blood knot or an FG knot junction, and then tied it right onto my split ring and it's ready to go. But walking the dog with a topwater bait, when bass are schooling and chasing baitfish, there aren't many topwaters that are as good at catching fish when bass are schooling on baitfish. Another bait that's really good at catching fish, chasing shad or baitfish is a swim bait. Some sort of swim bait little boot style swim bait like this is a striking rage swimmer, maybe a white one, or maybe a baitfish pattern one like that. I believe that one's green gizzard. It's got kind of a pearlescent body with a green back. Just a great color, really imitates the threadfin shad. And there's a couple different ways you could rig it. You could rig it on a jig head, but one of my favorites on an owner flashy swimmer. These owner flashy swimmers, when paired with a swim bait, man, it's just really hard to beat. You've got the action of the boot style swim bait and the flash of that little spinner just catches them. It really does. And it throws really well. Probably gonna rig this up on 14-pound test gamma fluorocarbon, and you might even run braided line to fluorocarbon leader. I just use straight fluorocarbon, at least a 14. You could sometimes get away with 12, but that flashy swimmer with a swim bait on the back, really hard to beat. Now, when they are just blowing up on shad and they're in close proximity and you can send a jerkbait out there, man, a little 2-hook jerkbait is just tremendous. Something that kind of matches the hatch size, matches the size of the bait fish. You can just fish that thing and then jerk, 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 pause. You may not even pause it. You may just jerk, 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 jerk. The key is presenting the bait right where the schooling activity happens. Some sort of shad or white or chrome works really well. Sometimes you'll even fish the big 3-hook one and you can really catch them on that. This is a Strike King KVD jerkbait. The jerkbait's just really good at drawing a reaction strike because of its erratic action. As you're twitching it through the water, that erratic action and that movement up and down and digging up and sideways, left, right, just really tremendous at getting fish to bite. And last but not least, a bait that you want to have for catching bass, schooling on bait fish, is a rattling bait. A rattling, vibrating bait like this is really good at catching fish. A 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce, or 3/4 ounce size, kind of trying to imitate the size of the bait fish that you might see as the bass are running them. This is a 1/2 ounce, either a white color or shad color like this striking red eye shad in Sexy Shad, or this chrome Tennessee shad can be really good as well, or chrome blueback. Man, it's really hard to beat one of those. Lipless crankbaits, vibrating lipless crankbaits, rattle type baits, whatever you want to call them. They're just tremendous at catching fish when bass are chasing and schooling fish, whether it's in a foot of water or 20 feet of water. The beautiful thing about this, you can throw them really far, and if you need to let them sink down in the water column, these sink. And you can fish them at a lower depth. You can yo-yo them, and you can just straight retrieve them, or you can burn them and then kill them. The lipless crankbait's gonna be the last lure in the lineup, but definitely don't sleep on this. This is one that I'd have tied up when you see schooling activity this summer. So those are the baits that I say you gotta have for catching bass when they're schooling up on top. One other bait that I wanna mention is kind of an honorable mention just because it just works so well at catching bass when they're schooling on bait fish. And that is a fluke type bait, or like a Strike King caffeine shad, but a soft jerk bait fish profile with like a 4 or 5/0 hook can be just tremendous. You've got that thing on 12 or 14-pound test, fluorocarbon, and you see them blowing up, you just throw it out there and you just twitch, 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 and then kill it. And that little soft jerkbait's just kind of hovering and sinking back down to the bottom like a dying threadfin shad. It's just such a great fish producer. Don't forget about that one as well. But those are the baits. If I was gonna create a box just for schooling bass, fishing for bass, schooling on threadfin shad or bait fish, those are the baits that I'd have in it. Until next time, thanks for watching and good fishing.